Good morning, everybody. Today's class is about clinical examination of motor system, which is the practicals in nervous system. The prime requisite to understand the concept of motor system is we need to understand what is the basis, what is the aim of the experiment, what's the procedure or the methods of examination, and the applied aspect or the clinical relevance in a patient. So, a patient walks with one side paralysis, and you say that there is a lesion in the internal capsule, it's called as hemiplegia. So, at the end of the class, we need to understand that what are the components of the motor system which must be correlating with the clinical patient of hemiplegia, paraplegia, or quadriplegia. So, anatomical and physiological of the motor physiology is it's very simple that the motor system consists of the motor areas in the brain, the upper motor neuron, the lower motor neuron, and the muscles. Movement occurs due to contraction of and relaxation of the agonist and antagonist. Agonists are muscles that facilitate movement by their contraction, whereas antagonists facilitate movement by relaxation. So, movement depends on the maintenance of posture and balance. A balanced posture provides a stable background for movement. So, physiologically, we need to understand that they are classified into medial or proximal group of muscles, which is concerned with posture and equilibrium, and the distal group of muscles, which are concerned with fine, skilled, voluntary activities that are manipulative. So, what is upper motor neuron, lower motor neuron? We must know. The upper motor neuron is that which originate in the motor cortex and the other areas in the brain that are involved in the motor regulation of motor activities and terminate in the on the anterior horn cells. They are classically divided into pyramidal and extrapyramidal. So, which you all know, the pyramidal is the corticospinal tract and the extrapyramidal tract are the rubrospinal, the vestibular, the reticulotectospinal, and the other components. And the lower motor neuron are the final common pathway for the output of the motor system. The cell bodies of the lower motor neurons are present in the anterior of the spinal cord. The lower motor neuron consists of anterior horn cells and the homologous cells in the brainstem. Their efferent nerve fibers pass via anterior spinal nerve root and peripheral nerves to the muscles and the terminal axonal branch that innervate the muscle fiber. In the ventral horn, the most medially situated motor neurons innervate the proximal group, that is the axial, which is concerned with posture and equilibrium, and the laterally situated motor neurons innervate the distal groups, which are concerned with skilled movement. So, what are the components of motor system? The first one is the bulk, which will give you an idea about the nutritional status of the muscle. The tone, which is the partial state of contraction, which mainly depends on the basis of stretch reflex, and you all know what is stretch reflex. With an intact nerve supply, when the muscle is stretched, the response is contraction, and you need to know what is strength, also called as power, and how do you grade this. The normal power is 5. What is coordination? Which are the tests for upper limb and lower limb? And what is gait and the involuntary movements, which is abnormal? And finally, the reflexes also are included in the motor system, which will be dealt in the next class, and which comprises of superficial and deep reflexes. So, what are the components of motor system? The brain motor areas predominantly are the primary motor cortex, the cortical association areas, subcortical structure, brainstem structures. The subcortical are the basal ganglia, and the upper motor neuron from the motor areas in the brain up to the spinal cord. The lower motor neuron constitute the anterior arms of the spinal cord up to the effector organ, that is the muscle or gland. So this is the main tract, how the corticospinal tract forms the corona radiata in the internal capsule, and they come 85% of the fibers cross over in the brainstem below the medulla, forming the lateral corticospinal tract, and the remaining forms the medial corticospinal tract. So we need to understand the effect of upper motor neuron on lower motor neuron, which inhibits the lower motor neuron and decreases its level of activity. So we are mainly dependent on the upper motor neuron, and understand the concept on reflex action. So this is the motor homunculus, wherein you can see the finger, the hand, thumb occupies the larger area, and whereas the sensory was mainly the receptor dependent. So the motor homunculus is the primary motor cortex, and how you can see the little finger the index finger occupies or the thumb occupies the larger area. So what is the principle of motor system? The integrity of motor system is assessed by examining the size, that is the bulk, tone and strength of muscles, and by evaluating the reflex response of the muscle to stretch and coordination of movement. So what are the requirements? You require a measuring tape and a knee hammer for reflexes. So the following aspects of the motor functions are bulk, tone, strength, reflex, coordination, gait and involuntary movements. Bulk is normally estimated by inspection and palpation. What is it? Inspection and palpation. So ask the subject, how do you perform this? Assess the bulk. You ask the subject to sit or lie down on a couch and remove all his clothing. Inspect the muscle mass of all parts and note for atrophy and hypertrophy. Atrophy and hypertrophy, and palpate the muscle for consistency. It's normally wasted in a wasted you have softer and flabbier, and it is firm in hypertrophic muscle. We need to compare the bulk of both the sides of the muscle. And how do you assess the difference in the circumference? We need to measure the mid-arm and mid-forearm circumference in upper limb, and mid-thigh and mid-calf circumference in lower limb, and we need to compare both the sides. So we need to inspect the muscle mass. So what is atrophy? Whether the bulk of the muscle may be normal, decreased, it is called as atrophy, and increased, it is called hypertrophy. So muscle atrophy is seen in neurological disorders, especially in lower motor neuron disease. Generalized wasting of muscle occurs in non-neurological conditions like malignancy and diabetes, thyrotoxicosis and TB, whereas muscle hypertrophy occurs due to excessive use of muscle as in athletes and gymnasts. It can also occur in some myotonic disorders. So there are two concepts, what is atrophy and what is hypertrophy. What is tone? Tone is defined as a state of partial contraction of the muscle. Clinically, tone is defined as resistance felt when a joint is moved passively. Here we need to eliminate the gravity and make the patient lie down in a supine position and try to move the joint passively. And you all know that the stretch reflex forms the basis of muscle tone. So when a joint is moved passively, certain muscle groups are stretched, and the stretch induced contraction results in the resistance that is offered to the passive movements. How do you test the muscle tone? It is essential that the patient should be completely relaxed and should not offer any voluntary assistance or resistance during examination. So the contraction should result only from reflex activity. That is the most important thing. So he is almost relaxed and not offer any resistance. The student should hold the limb on either side of the joint to be tested and put the elbow, wrist, hip and knee and ankle joints through full range of passive movement, that's around 15 degrees, and note if the resistance to movement is normal, increased or decreased. The tone has to be assessed bilaterally comparing it and each joint. Comparing it at each joint. An increase in resistance is called as hypotonia, whereas a decrease in resistance is called as hypotonia. Hypotonia is a feature of upper motor neuron lesion. It manifests as spasticity or rigidity. Spasticity is used to describe a state of increased tone of muscle, which is of clasp 9. Here the tone is when you open a tone is much more increased in anti-gravity muscles. That is, what are the anti-gravity muscles? The flexors of the upper limb and the extensors and adductors of lower limb. Clasp 9 rigidity is seen in pyramidal tract lesions. So there is a difference between spasticity and rigidity. In rigidity, both group of muscles are involved. So it is seen in all muscles without any relation to gravity. The two types are lead pipe and cogwheel. Lead pipe is seen in, here the resistance is like a pipe. Resistance to passive movement is uniform throughout the range of movement. It is mainly in Parkinson's disease, whereas cogwheel is the resistance to passive movement is seen alternatively, that is, there is an alternate resistance and relaxation. This is typically seen in basal ganglia, particularly involvement of the substantia nigra. So how do you assess the muscle tone in different muscle groups? It can assist done by executing the following passive movements. So you either flex or extend at the elbow joint, flex or extend the wrist joint, pronate and supinate, flexion and extension, abduction and adduction of hips, internal external rotation of the hips, flexion and extension of the knee, dorsiflexion and plantar flexion of the ankles. So the first one was bulk, which gives you about the size, the nutrition and the consistency. Based on the consistency, you can try to clinically say whether there is atrophy or hypertrophy. Whereas tone is a partial state, we need to eliminate, it's a passive movement across the joint, we need to eliminate the gravity, and there should be no voluntary contraction or any resistance offered during assessing the tone or performing the tone. So what is power? Muscle power is tested by asking the subject to move the limbs voluntarily. So what is it? Here it is better estimated by active movement against resistance. Here we ask the subject to perform a movement of any part of the body, say flexion of the forearm, or you oppose the movement actively by oppose flexion of forearm by placing your palm on his forearm and giving maximum resistance to stop flexion. The strength of the subject is assessed by comparing the strength of the examiner. Each sex build of the person should be kept in mind while comparing the strength. Compare the strength of same group of muscles of the either side simultaneously. The strength and weakness of muscles is graded into 6 grades by Indian Medical Research Council. That is, when there is grade 0, there is no movements or no contraction, which is complete paralysis. Grade 1 is there is a flicker of contraction only without any resultant movement of any limb or joint. So there is no movement of any limb or joint, only flicker of contraction. Whereas grade 2, movements possible only when gravity is eliminated. That is, muscle can make movements only when the opposing force of gravity is eliminated by appropriate positioning. So the third grade is movements possible against gravity but not against resistance. The limb can be moved against the force of the gravity but not against the examiner's resistance. So when he is flexing, we try to prevent the flexion. Or the fourth grade, here movements are possible against small resistance. That is, the muscle is able to make full range of normal movement but can be overcome by resistance to a variable extent. So finally, movements are possible against higher resistance, that is normal power. So when there is, what do you do in this muscle is, for example, in the upper limb, for the first dorsal interosseous, you abduct the index finger, and which are the abductors and adductors? For the lumbricals, you ask the patient to flex at the metacarpophalangeal. Flexors are the fingers, which are the pollicis, you flex them. They are tested by asking the subject to squeeze your index finger and middle finger. And flexors of the wrist is, ask the subject to bring tips of the finger towards the front of the forearm so as to touch the crease on the front of the wrist joint. Extensors of the wrist are the carpi radialis and extensor carpi largus. Ask the subject to flex the fingers in the form of a fist and hand is held with palm downwards. Then hold the wrist joint firmly and ask the subject to extend the wrist joint against resistance. So biceps, you ask him to flex and you see the prominence as it contracts, and triceps, you ask to straighten the forearm. So each of the muscle deltoid can be tested along the supraspinatus. The subject is asked to make forward and backward movement of the abducted arm at 45-degree angle against. So all the power is tested based on the action of the muscle. See, biceps is mainly flexor, triceps is an extensor. So based on that, when they are flexing, we apply resistance. So serratus anterior, which is here, we ask the subject to push forward against the wall with both the hands. And latissimus dorsi, the subject is asked to clap his hands behind his back while the examiner is standing behind the subject and offers passive resistance to downward and back movement. And you need to test for abdominal muscles, where Babinski rising up sign is also checked. The weakness of muscles of the abdomen is detected by observing the subject's inability to raise himself in bed without the aid of arms. Erector spinae and muscles of the back. Here we ask the subject to lie down on his face and try to raise his head from the bed by extending the neck. The intrinsic muscles of the foot, the dorsiflexors and plantar flexors of the feet are done based on the contraction. And we need to test for the everters and inverters of the foot, the extensors of the knee, the flexors of the knee, extensors of the knee, extensors of the thigh, flexors of the thigh, adductors of the thigh, abductors of the thigh, and rotators of the thigh. So this completes the whole thorough examination, and both the sides it has to be performed and compared with the examiner's normal power. A reduction in, what is it? A reduction in, what do you call it as? If the muscle strength is decreased, there is paresis. that is reduction in muscle power, or total loss of muscle contraction is paralysis, that is there is no strength at all. So what are the conditions? You come across hemiplegia, which means paralysis of one side of the body, especially of the arm and leg. Paraplegia means paralysis of both the limbs. Monoplegia means paralysis of one limb, whereas quadriplegia means paralysis of all the four limbs. Hemiplegia is usually seen in lesion of the corticospinal tract at the level of internal capsule. Paraplegia is seen in spinal cord lesion below the mid-thoracic level, whereas quadriplegia is seen in spinal cord lesion above the upper thoracic level. The monoplegia usually occurs due to lesion of nerve plexus. There is something called crossed paralysis, which refers to paralysis of ipsilateral cranial musculature with contralateral hemiplegia. This is seen in brainstem disease. The weakness of muscle may occur in absence of paralysis. It occurs due to myasthenia gravis, myopathies and myotonic dystrophies. So what is coordination? Coordination is defined as or depends on the motor activity, on the integrity of proprioception, vision, and so coordination of movement means smooth recruitment, interaction and cooperation of muscles or group of muscles to carry out a precise and definite motor act. The coordination of movement should be tested both in the upper and lower limb. So what is lack of proper coordination? It is called as ataxia. The lesions of motor pathway may be accompanied by clumsiness, but in dorsal and cerebellar lesion, the symptoms are pronounced. How do you do? The tests of normally when we talk about coordination, we need the general test for coordination is subject is asked to pick an object, untie and tie his shoelace, fasten the button, and the movements are observed for coordination. He should be able to button and unbutton it. But for the upper limb, we need to perform finger nose test, diadochokinesia, and knee drawing the circle in the air. Ask the subject to outstretch his arms and then bring his index finger tip of the outstretched hand so you need to stretch his arms and then bring his index finger tip of the outstretched hand towards his nose and touch the tip of his nose. He should repeat the maneuver in rapid section with both sides of the four fingers. This is done first with eyes open and then with eyes closed. So you outstretch the hand completely and then touch the nose. There is something called finger nose test and finger nose finger. Here in finger nose finger, subject is asked to touch the examiner's finger with the index finger and touch the tip of his own nose, and the position of examiner's fingers altered each time. The subject is able to perform the test correctly. These are all non-equilibratory tests. Diadochokinesia is the subject is asked alternatively to pronate and supinate his forearm rapidly, but his knees with palm and dorsal of his hands alternatively. Here what do we do? Ask the subject to clap one hand alternately with the palm and dorsum of the other hand quickly and repeatedly. See, that is, you alternately supinate and pronate on your thigh. Impairment of rapid alternating movement is called as dysdiadochokinesia. For the upper limb, the one more test is ask the subject to draw a circle in the air using his finger. The coordination in the lower limb are, we do knee heel test, and the equilibratory test called as Romberg sign. Heel knee test or knee heel test. It's called as knee heel test. Ask the subject to place one heel on the opposite knee and then slide the heel accurately down the front of the shin to the ankle and back again. Failure to do so is a sign of cerebellar dysfunction. You need to do bilaterally. So what is Romberg sign, which is an equilibratory test? Here, this is a test for the loss of position sense in the legs. Ask the subject to stand with his feet close together. If he can do this, then ask him to close his eyes. If he begins to sway when his eyes is closed, then it is Romberg's positive sign. This sign indicates a defect in position sense which is compensated by visual inputs when the eyes is closed. What do we do here once again? It's an equilibratory test wherein the subject is asked to stand upright with his feet approximated first with his eyes open and then with his eyes closed. A Romberg test is said to be positive when the patient is able to maintain the upright position while the eyes are open, but when the eyes are closed, he sways and tends to fall. So when he is open, he is fine, but when he closes, he sways and tends to fall. This is positive Romberg sign which is present in sensory ataxia. Normally, the observation should be they should neither sway nor fall. Then Romberg test is negative. So what is gait? Gait is a manner of walking. It is tested by asking the subject to walk barefoot on a straight line. Ask him to walk, turn around and come back. Observe. Here what do we do? The subject is asked to walk from an examiner to turn around at a given point and then come towards him again. The subject walks in a straight line with coordinate swinging of the arms. The inference is coordination of the movement is normal. So what is tandem walking? Here the subject is asked to walk on a straight line, placing the heel of one foot directly in front of the toe of the other foot. The subject performs tandem walking in a straight line without deviating to one side or falling. Here that means the inference is coordination of the movement is normal. So what are the changes? It can be spastic and corticospinal lesions, stamping as in sensory ataxia, drunken as in cerebellar ataxia, festinate as in Parkinson's disease, and waddling as in myopathies. So it's a manner of walking which can be assessed by tandem walking or making him to walk casually in a straight line and making him to turn back. If he keeps his one heel in front of the toe and walks on a straight line. So what are the involuntary movements? These are tremors, fasciculations, twisting, writhing, dancing and flailing that are not seen in normal subjects as manifestation of, these are manifestation of various neurological disorders, especially that of basal ganglia. So we need to understand that the involuntary movements should be explained in detail. They are not normally seen. It's normally seen in disease of the nervous system that occurs involuntary unintended movements. Whether there is an involuntary movement of any part of the body, if involuntary movement at all, what type of movement has to be assessed. So there are different gaits which we discussed: drunken gait, hemiplegic gaits, ataxic gait, stamping gait. All this, the videos will be sent to you all. So if there is a chordate nucleus, there is semibalismus, chorioathetosis. So all this has to be explained. So we can have different types If it is extrapyramidal, it can be athetosis chorea, whereas spasms can be tonic and clonic spasms, fibrillation and fasciculation. Fasciculation is contraction of a bundle of muscle fibers, whereas fibrillation is contraction of single muscle fiber. So there can be myoclonus, sudden shock-like contraction of single muscle or a group of muscle is called as myoclonus. Tremor is a regular rhythmical, purposeless and to and fro movement of a part of the body due to contraction of a group of muscle and their antagonists. It is usually involved in distal parts of the limbs, tongues and rarely the trunk. It is divided into resting or static tremor, that is, which occurs at rest, or intention or kinetic tremor, which occurs during a purposeful movement. Resting tremor is typically seen in Parkinson's and intention tremor is seen in cerebellar disorder. Tremor is also divided into fine and coarse tremor. Fine tremor is seen in anxiety hyperthyroidism, whereas coarse tremor is seen in Parkinson's disease, which is called as spin rolling tremor. So there are different causes of tremor which can be physiological and pathological. Chorea is rapid involuntary dancing type of movement, which is Huntington's chorea. Athetosis is continuous slow or writhing movements. Sabalism is the involuntary movements which occur in sudden, flailing, intense, violent. It's mainly due to a lesion in subthalamic nucleus. So what are the applied aspects with respect to motor system? So there are signs. If there is a lesion in the lower motor neuron, you can have paralysis, fasciculations and muscle wasting, hypotonia, absence of superficial and deep reflexes. Whereas if it's upper motor neuron lesion, the signs of pyramidal lesion are paresis, positive Babinski sign, decreased movements of the digits, hip flexion and shoulder. So upper motor neuron is mainly the muscles are affected in groups. Atrophy is not seen. There is spastic paralysis, hypertonia. Paralysis occurs. There is no voluntary movements. Tendon reflexes are exaggerated. Superficial reflexes are absent. Babinski is positive. EMG changes. There is no denervation potential seen. Nerve conduction studies, there is no abnormalities in nerve conduction. Whereas low motor neuron lesion, individual muscles are affected. Pronounced atrophy, 80% of the total maybe the muscles. Flaccid paralysis, hypotonia, paralysis occurs. Diminished or absent deep tendon or tendon reflexes, superficial reflexes absent. Babinski sign is negative. There are fascicular twitches which may be seen, which are the involuntary movements. Denervation potentials like fibrillation and fasciculations are seen on EMG. The extrapyramidal lesions include spasticity, exaggerated tendon reflexes. Signs of mixed and pyramidal and extrapyramidal are when you combine both 2 and 3, that is the pyramidal lesion and extrapyramidal lesion. The signs of basal ganglia is tremor, rigidity and hypokinesia. And the signs of cerebellar lesion are ataxia and hypotonia with intention tremor. So, thank you. So the whole motor system, we need to understand the whole level of the lesion. You can clinically diagnose cases more easily with the nervous system because the symptoms are very specific to the particular area of involvement. So you can localize the lesion. If there is an internal capsule, there is hemiplegia. So based on the, so we discuss about the bulk, which is the nutrition, the tone, which is partial state, which is a passive movement across the joint, the strength and power of the muscles of each of the muscles are compared to the examiner. Then we performed what is called as the strength. We graded them into no movement is paralysis, the flicker, without gravity, with gravity, resistance, against resistance, and Indian Medical Council research, we came across the gait, that is the coordination, wherein the upper limb and lower limb was assessed based on the finger nose test, the finger nose finger test, then the Didocockinesia, drawing a circle in the air, lower limb was knee heel test, and the equilibratory test for coordination was the rhombus test, the tandem walking, and finally the involuntary movements. Reflexes are part of the motor system which we dealt in the next class. Thank you.